name. Do 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 la da la da da la da la da 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 da
Hey,
da da.
happy holidays there. You looking festive?
I'm feeling festive.
Yeah.
Feeling it, man. Yeah.
Yeah, we've got the whole holiday fest going on at our house. We've got all of our Santa Clauses out, we've got our tree up, we've got the lights up, we've got the outdoor lights on. We have so many lights plugged in outside that our septic system is turning off. So
It's tripping the breaker on the septic. That is like the one breaker. Okay, there are two breakers in Texas you don't want going down: the septic and then the air conditioner.
Yeah,
And
no.
well, right now I guess the AC doesn't matter. But
Yeah, no, but
goodness,
we're on the septic line, so I like have to every now and then say which one do I rather have on, the Christmas lights or the septic line? It's like all right. Well, what's the
you're
worst?
like, I'm not really sure. Oh, thank you,
Right.
Rory. Rory said, "Nice hat. I love it. Thank you." And
Right.
Chris, with that.
Oh, we better get started. I didn't even realize.
Oh
that it
no, I
was
thought we were
already
just
top of the
finishing.
hour.
Did we not just wrap it up?
Oh yeah, sorry. Hey, it's been nice seeing you guys. Hey buddy, hey Rory, hey Martin. Good. I'm glad great presentation. All right, now just kidding, guys. We're here and we're going to be talking about the 21-day goal acceleration program. And this is something that we're very excited to bring to you guys. In fact, I wasn't going to share this until after the new year. But then Gary was like, yo, everyone's doing their planning now. Like everyone's working on their goals for 2020 now. We need to get this out there. And so quickly.
Here's a great gift too, Chris, is giving people a reason to escape the family during the holidays. I mean, it's just wonderful.
Right. All right. So with that, here's the way we're going to roll today, guys, is we're going to talk about the 21-day goal acceleration program. We're going to show you what it looks like. We're going to go into the individual days of the 21 days so that when you go to work on them, you're going to know what's there. And then we'll answer questions that you might have about any of the 21 days that are part of this program. And so I guess we should explain to everybody what the 21-day goal acceleration program actually is, Gary.
That's probably a good idea. Yeah.
Yes.
Otherwise, and by the way, if at any point during this you're like, yeah, I don't want to set my goals for 2020, you can leave. It's fine.
Yeah, you don't have to. It's not a requirement. But how many of you would like to sell more homes in the next 12 months than you did in the last 12 months?
Well, one thing I love that you always say, Chris, is that if your goal is to sell more real estate next year than this year, then you have to do something different. So what are you planning on doing different? Yeah. Because otherwise, if you plan on doing exactly what you did last year, you're going to produce the same results. So let's get into making some changes.
So here's what the 21-day goal acceleration program, it's 21 days of activities that you do to both set, vet, and achieve your goals. And so what we've done is we've taken this as a highly structured action plan because in both Gary's and my experience, when it comes to creating goals, particularly business goals for ourselves, what happens is that we have a tendency to be influenced by things other than I guess reality. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know about you, Gary, but I oftentimes have a very optimistic view of what I'm going to accomplish in a year, only to find out that, maybe working harder or just sheer gumption really wasn't enough. But I needed to have a substantiated plan. I needed to make sure those goals were ones that were really important to me. And so,
yeah. And, Chris, I think really a lot of this comes out of when you and I speak at this time of every year. You always ask, like, what are your goals for real estate sales this next year? And one thing I don't say that I think most realtors I know say is, I want to double my income. Like, it's just this arbitrary number. I'm going to double my closings. I'm going to 10x
my sales.
But the thing is, Chris, is that's actually a real possibility, but you have to have a plan. You got to have a map to get there.
Yeah, and so that's what the 20 over the course of the 21 days, you have a daily activity that's going to start with setting your goals and making sure they're the right ones, and then we quickly jump into the planning and the substantiation of how we're going to accomplish them. In fact, you're going to get a preview today of what those 21 days are. It also includes tools to multiply and measure your income, and then here's a very powerful one when it comes to reaching our goals is the support and accountability to keep you on track. Now, this program officially starts on January 6th. Like I said, we weren't going to release this until January 6th, but Gary was like, we got to do this now and we got to give it to our folks. So you guys, when you log into the membership site, you're going to see that it's in there. But before you do,
oh my gosh, you just unwrapped their gift for them.
I know. This is a gift for everybody, but here's the thing. Before you guys go check it out, we actually have a video that we had done for us trying to describe exactly what this program is.
And I was shocked, Chris. I was absolutely shocked when you told us we got a celebrity weightlifting chef.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. A celebrity weightlifting chef to come out to Chris's house to shoot a video kind of sharing with you what this is. Chris, do we have that video available?
Yeah, you guys want to check out this video? I mean, we were not going to share this until January, but I think you guys will be really impressed with the skills that this talent has in terms of being able to communicate what it is. Let's take a look at this video.
Well, not just the communication, it's cooking. This guy actually he cooks during this video. It's freaking awesome.
This is I hope you guys enjoy this because a lot of
Mike Moretz is like, yeah, bring it, man. Let's do it.
Let's check out this video on the 21-day program. It's only like 30 seconds, so hang with us.
If you want to sell more homes in the next year than you did in the last year, then you need a good plan. And a good plan is going to give you 21 days of daily activities designed, proven, shown, and give you results. Good plan is going to have ways to multiply your income so you can have the best year yet. In fact, a good plan is going to have a healthy dose of accountability and support so that you can ensure to get your goals. That's why we created the 21-day goal acceleration program. It's designed to help you achieve your goals in 2020. Right now.
Did it cut off too fast, or did everybody see that?
It's only 30 seconds long.
All right. Now that is a celebrity chef. There you go.
So anyway, that was a little bit of fun because actually we're going to show you what the program is all about right now. In fact, just as a heads up, so when you log in, you might have to, if you want to access this program like right now, you might have to log out of the members area of our website and then log back in because we like literally just flipped this card on so that everyone would have access to this course like 20 minutes ago. So when you log in, if you don't see somewhere in there something that looks like this 21-day goal acceleration program that you see on the screen in the red box, then log out and then log back in before emailing us. And then if it's still not there, email us at support@thepaperless agent. When you click on there, you're going to see that it takes you to our course site through our course through our course software. And you're going to see when you first log in, there's a message from us. There's a very important page, though, in here, which is the tools and resources section of this site.
Yeah, that's right. So Chris and we created this workbook for everybody. And Chris, this is an incredible. We spent a lot of time creating this program for everybody, and that workbook is in there. Chris, would you say that that's the first thing they should do?
You need the workbook to work the program. Your workbook is where you're going to like do all of the daily activities. So what you're going to find is that in the tools and resources section here, you'll download this workbook. And then you'll just get to work, right? So in each day, you're going to find that there's a brief lesson or there's a brief video, and then there's some tips and instructions, and then there's an assignment that you do, right? And what you'll do is you'll go to the workbook to do the assignment, if that makes sense. So you watch the video here in the course site, but then you'll pull up that Word document, that workbook, so you can work in it. Now, one of the really cool things about the way we've set it up. And so what'll happen, in the workbook for each one of the days, you're going to find that there's like an actual section to answer the questions or a section to input the information. And what you're going to find is at the conclusion of the 21 days, this workbook all filled out doubles up as your business plan for the year, right? So, I mean, it's real, or It'll be a business
Yeah.
plan that you can continuously update, but it's going to have your goals, it's going to have your plans and your action plans, and it's going to have a whole lot more than just actually working on it, because we also have to get into some professional development items, and that'll make more sense once we go into the day by day. So I think, Gary, what we'll do is the best way to go into which each one of the days are, and also be able to see what kind of questions people have about this program and how to navigate it and how to do it successfully, is that we'll go through day by day. And if you guys have a question about what you're seeing, and like we're going to share some tips and experience, just drop it in there. And Gary, let's try to answer it all the time.
We already got a question.
Whoa, let's do it.
Well, Cheryl said, is it best to print it out or work on it online? And
digitally is preferred.
I would say digitally, because it's going to be a growing organism type document. So
Yeah,
a business plan, by the way, is not something that you document and it's just static for the entire year. No, this is a living, breathing document.
Yeah, this you don't know how much you're going to have to type. And I don't know if the space that I provided would be enough if you printed it out. So
Right.
Definitely recommend that you download it and type into the document. And then after you've typed into the document, then print it out and carry it around with you everywhere you go. Fair enough. In fact, you can rename
it everywhere you go.
Well, hey, the best way for your plans to become reality is if you constantly keep them in front of you, right? So if you have goals, you got to keep them in front of you all the time. Keep your plans in front of you all the time. And so when you're completed with the 21 days, you'll take this workbook and you'll rename it from workbook to business plan, my 2020 business plan, and you're off to the races, right? And so what I've done, Gary, is I've uploaded the workbook so that we can go day by day and get everybody. Yeah. So that way we can talk about it and give our tips and maybe even share what some of our goals are or the things that we're going to be working on, and see what kind of questions that we spark from it. So let me just pull up, in order to do this, I'm going to stop this presentation and pull up the workbook presentation. And there we go. And so the first day, well, in here, you'll see there's a message from Gary and Chris, and that's all good, but let's get to the meat here. So the first day is to enter into and answer these specific questions that we've included on what happened last year. I think a lot of times, and it's funny, I just did this with our team yesterday. We sat down and we asked and we talked about, like, what did we achieve in the last year? What were our successes? I think a lot of us have a tendency to either not acknowledge our successes at all, or we only think about our successes. So it's good to put them up there objectively, in your own, like, what did I get done in the last year? What's funny is that nobody really remembers what happened 6 months ago or a year ago. And I think it's important to remember those things where we succeeded, because we want to replicate our successes, right? We want to minimize our failures or minimize the areas where we've learned lessons, but we want to, amplify our successes. But also in here, we talked about, where are there lessons to be learned? One way to avoid repeating the mistakes of the past is to acknowledge them, to document them, right? You don't want to just keep running forward. I think this is, if you've ever had the experience maybe in previous years where you said, I'm going to try and sell more homes, and let's say you didn't achieve that. Well, I think it's important to reflect, why didn't I achieve that? Well, just trying harder isn't going to get it done, right? And even you might give yourself you might say, well, I got sick, or some of these circumstances happen. That's fine. But so what's the lesson to be learned there? Well, you need to account for the oh crap type things, right? So you need to account for the monkey wrenches being thrown at you. And so
Chris, I also want to mention something, and I learned this from my mentor. I'd have to say probably my third or fourth, maybe fifth year in real estate. And that is, in real estate, I think we're really, really bad at celebrating our accomplishments and our achievements. I would go to a closing and I'd leave it and I'm like, on to the next, on to the next, on the next, on the next. And instead, my coach, my consultant was like, no, you've got to slow down and celebrate those achievements. And what better time during the year than to reflect right now and actually celebrate your achievements, because that really helps you set your mentality for the next year as well.
Yeah, no, you have to, what is it? I think it was Socrates who said, the unexamined life is not worth living. Yeah. And I think
that was Socrates who said that.
Socrates. So crates and barrels.
Anyway, sorry, Chris. On to the next.
Yes.
Yeah, an unexamined life. Yes.
The idea there is that unless you reflect on where you've been, unless you reflect on what you've done, is that you don't really get to benefit from those experiences, especially the really hard won experiences, meaning that maybe there was a failure or there we had trials, we had to overcome issues, we had obstacles. And so those are important things for us to learn from. I think one of the things that I learned in the last year, Gary, and I'll just share this with everybody, is that for me, I would say for the last year, maybe year and a half, 2 years, one of the things that I've focused on is doing like just incremental goals, like making incremental improvements. And I had always thought that, all right, well, that's the best way. That's the Kaizen way of doing things, right? Like the incremental small baby steps. And the problem with the incremental improvements that I have found for us in the last 2 years is that they don't deal with the monkey wrench very well. So if you get the monkey wrench, and the monkey wrench is inevitable, right? Like every year you get something thrown at you that you weren't anticipating or that you weren't expecting.
Boy, oh boy.
And that's fact.
Yeah, it's like Mike Morantz just said, he had a breakup with a long-term partner and really put a damper on the business. Man, you want to talk about a monkey wrench? Absolutely.
So here's the thing: the incremental improvements. When the monkey wrench gets thrown at you, the incremental improvements don't happen, right? Because the monkey wrench takes you down, so the incremental improvements only get you back to where you started. That's the way it's been for me. And so what I found is that. Now, that doesn't mean you throw out the baby with the bathwater. I think you still work on those incremental improvements, and this is for me. But I also want to make sure that in my plans and in my goals, I've got some swinging for the fences opportunities as well. Yeah. I found that keeps me excited. That keeps us really like working, I think, even more active on things when we're swinging for the fences on something exciting. And, in the years where you and I have done that, where we've swung for the fences and did incremental, those were our best years. And they were also those are the most fun years. So,
well, I'm personally, both in real estate and at Paperless Agent, we're going to swing for the fences this year. So, and we hope you do too.
Yeah. So we got to do some Babe Ruth in there. You point to the stands, and that's where we're going to hit it. So that's day one, though, is to reflect on that. And there's some questions. We put these exact questions for you to really spend more time on it. And those are good prompts for you. So then we get into day two. And day two is to further on our understanding of the previous year, but start looking at some numbers. We want to understand our performance. Gary, I know in everyone I've ever observed you working with, this is like critical is to know what happened from your numbers, right? From transactions, from GCI, ratio of buyers and sellers, different sources of business. You always like as close as you can. So, I mean, you suggest pulling up the records if they have them, right? But why is it so important to assess like how many sales happened or how many?
Without actually knowing your numbers from the past year and really closely examining the actions that brought about those results, there's a zero way for us to project into the future and say, okay, well, if I did this in the past, and these are the actions and practices and strategies I was under, there's no way to be able to prepare for the future. And so we've got to look at the past and see what happened.
Well, we know whatever result that we got, it was the result of our thinking and our actions, and therefore the plans that we had. And so if we don't assess, hey, here's how I performed and the plans that I used to get that level of performance, how would you do something differently? Right? If you don't acknowledge what you're going to do differently, is it possible we might repeat the mistakes of the past by doing the exact same thing? Yeah. And so having a concrete understanding of that seems really important.
Absolutely. So before we get to day three, Chris, I wanted to pause everything and just give a moment of gratitude to Tanya for sharing her challenge. Tanya, her comment is, I'm looking forward to digging into this. I'm essentially starting from scratch to rebuild after spending the last few years with my husband being ill. He passed away, so now I have to light a fire under my business and rebuild fast. So Tanya, deepest condolences to you. I mean, wow, what a I don't know, what a testament to who you are for taking care of your husband. And now, if we can help you light a fire and get that business going, I think this is probably going to be the way to do that. This is a great place to start.
Yeah, I think this is what I love about this time of year for me, and I think for a lot of folks, is that it's a time that causes, and I think it happens in one of two ways. I think sometimes it's a positive way, and then I think other times, I won't use the word positive, but it's in a not so positive way. And let me explain what I'm saying. Is I think that this is the time of year when people tend to be a little bit more reflective. Right. I think we have a tendency, because maybe the pace is a little bit slower, maybe because we're spending time with people over the holidays, seeing friends or whatever, or maybe because we're seeing images of that. Right. I know when I talk to my mom, it's funny, my mom and then my wife's mom, they actually get kind of low during the holidays every year. And a lot of it's resulting of this, like the reflective process. And I find that because it is a reflective time of year, it's really good to take a step back from the grind, from the activity, and assess where we were and think about where we want to go, because that can be very, like, just taking the time to reflect, getting centered on what we want to do, getting centered on our purpose, getting centered on, this is the life that I want to manifest and to realize. And these are the things that I'm going to have to go to do it. That can be very inspirational. I know for me, I always get excited. So first I become reflective and then I get excited. I'll be honest, Gary, I'm more excited about our 2020 than I have been about our businesses in the last 2 years. Right? Because of taking the time to step back, looking at where we've been, looking and analyzing the mistakes that we've made, looking at the successes that we've had, and said, all right, what are we going to go do next year? Right? What are we going to do next year? What are we going to do the year after that? And that can be invigorating, right? That can be, because there's a lot of it is perspective. You know what I mean? Like when you think about mindset has so much to do with how we view the day, right? It really comes, there's that whole that adage of the glass half full versus the glass half empty. A lot of that is choice, right? And I think there's some of us who are naturally tend to see the glass one way or another, but we can reframe narratives. We can reframe what we're working to do. We can be just like, I'm just trying to sell real estate, or I'm just trying to do XYZ, or you can reframe that into realizing goals that you have and the plans that you're working on and the future that you want to produce for yourself. So thank you for sharing that with us. Okay.
Day number 3.
All right. So now we're on to day number 3. And you're going to find that day number 3 is where we first start talking about what do you want to achieve?
Yeah, this is the shift from the past to the future.
Yes. And I think what I would highlight here, and we get into specific numbers here, but I think it's important to note that whenever we begin thinking about what we want to go do, and so we start writing goals, I would encourage you to look at them as first drafts, because at this stage in the process, that is all they are. It's like an idea. It's an intention. It is not something that you've committed to. It's not something that has plans for you to produce that future. And so right now it's the intention. And by the way, we might have to revise them based on the reality of our other obligations in life and the other things that we want to pursue. So when we start to think about what we want to achieve, think about, all right, what do I think I want to do, right? What do I think I can do? Now, we're going to come back and revisit this because we want to make sure that there's no conflicts. We want to make sure that we've got a good plan, that we can achieve this in the time frame that we're trying to achieve, and it's okay to revise them. So it's going to be good. I would much rather have everybody make revisions to their goals and know, right? That's just the mindset. Instead of saying, oh, I failed, I didn't achieve it, is no, I purposefully am revising them based on new input. It's not a good expectation to say, all right, I sold 10 homes last year and I'm going to sell 100 homes next year, right? Like, okay. It's like Gary said, it's possible, but not just on sheer willpower. Not if your business plan is work harder, it's not going to work, right? You need more substantiation than that. I think a lot of times we'll find, and what this process is, by the way, that's why each day, and some of you might want to jump ahead and do more than one day at a time. That's fine. Go for it, right? But that's what we're going to address in day 2 and day 3 is what do you want to achieve? And then you will fill that out into the workbook. And day 4, Gary, we get into the why. Why do we want to achieve those things?
Yeah, well, we have to have a big why as to why we want to achieve things. Like saying, I want to close 100 deals this year. Why? Because it sounded good. No. What is your big why? Like, why do you want to achieve it? Because without that why, there's not going to be a lot of fuel and fire behind achieving that goal. So it's really critical to understand the answer to that.
This for me, a perfect example of a goal that I used to have for years, and I never achieved it. To this day, I've never achieved this goal. My whole life, I've never been able to do this goal. Is I used to have the goal of having like a 6-pack abs, right? Having a 6-pack or an 8-pack of abs. I was always like, I remember there were years, I'm in my 40s now, so it's like it's like, all right, I'm not even gonna try. But even in my 30s, when I was in my more optimal condition, I would write down every year, this is the year I'm gonna get 6-pack abs. Not a 6-pack of beer, but a 6-pack of abs.
And you never did it?
I never did it. Now here's the funny thing. Is in those same years that I couldn't get 6-pack abs, I was able to like run marathons. Like I've never run marathons before. And then all of a sudden I was running marathons, right? So I had all these other physical things that I was able to drop the weight, right? But I was never able to actually get, I would have been happy with like a 2-pack of abs. Just give me like 2 little abs that I could point to, but I could get no pack abs. It just wasn't,
no pack abs.
Now, if you were to ask, why do I want them? This is where, like for me, this is where the reason why I didn't do it is the why behind it wasn't important enough to me. You know what I mean? Like for me, the idea of running a marathon and being strong, like that's why I wanted to run. I wanted to be strong, and having the 6-pack abs, or for me, the 2-pack abs, it wasn't the representation. I could be strong without a 2-pack. You know what I mean? And so the why behind it, the why of just looking good wasn't a big enough motivator for me, right? Maybe if I was single, but by the time I started writing this down, I was already married with children. Maybe if I wrote it back when I was in my 20s before I was married, it might have been a greater motivator for me, but it's in the past now. So anyway, and you want to ask, sometimes you have to ask yourself why multiple times, right? Teresa says, I think you can spray on the 6-pack. I think I saw a really funny video where somebody took like a 6-pack can, like that plastic thing, and then they spray painted the 6-pack of the circles on their stomach, and it kind of looked like.
Well, Bob's got the keg, and so I think we're done with the 6-pack ads. All right, on to day 5.
Okay, what's the gap between your goals? This is what you were talking about, Gary, right? Like you can't just say, oh, I want to sell 100 homes this year without understanding where you were, right, from last year, and then looking at where you want to go and clearly addressing that gap, right?
Absolutely. And so, and having it on the same document side by side makes it a lot easier to understand where you've been and the gap of where you need to go for the next year. And actually, I think I've got a typo there, Chris. It says 2019 goals and objectives. That should actually say 2020. But
oh, you know what, Jordan? I have 2019 in there.
Yeah,
Jordan's gonna fix it. I got it.
Sometimes Chris doesn't know if he's coming or going and what year it is. But hey,
so I got the T. I got Jordan right there. She's there. Say hello, Jordan. You're on camera. I know they can't really see. It's real fuzzy. But anyway.
All right, so that's day number 5 is a gap analysis.
Now, here's an important thing to note, guys, is we're going to list this in this table. And the reason we want to do this is, and we're going to address this further throughout this program, throughout this 21-day goal acceleration program. But what we want to start thinking about is there is a gap between where I am today and where I want to be next year. And that gap will not. And I think the more we can encourage you not to embrace the idea that try harder is a good business plan, but that rather you're going to need to do something different. You might need new skills. You might need more knowledge. You might need to buff out your operations differently. You might need to make some investments, right? I mean, like there are things outside of try harder that we need to do. And I think, Gary, this reminds me, you had shared with me a business plan that was being shared with folks in real estate. And we were looking at it and talking about it. And it was very different from the one that we're sharing with everybody. It was more of the numbers-based approach of like, all right, how homes. It started with people like saying, well, what's your budget? And then so, okay, based on your home budget, how much money do you need to make? And based on how much money do you make, how many sales do you need to do? And based on how many sales you need to do, how many appointments do you need to go on, and how many appointments do you go on? And, the problem I had with that one is it boiled it down to, well, that means you need to make X number of phone calls a day. And I don't think, like, maybe that used to be the strategy or the plan was like, hey, just make more phone calls. And that's the way you're going to sell more homes. And I think today that's not the answer. It's not like I'm going to make more phone calls. I mean, because that's like just a decline, like that's a diminishing return. Look at all these robo callers are ruining telephone calls for everybody. You know what I mean? Like, it's phone calls are becoming a very difficult thing to be fruitful just because of the sheer number of robocallers. There are other ways of communication, right? Heck, FaceTime is a better communication, even better quality communication than doing a phone call. So I think that a plan can't just be try harder on something like an activity like that. And a plan can't even be like, all right, just go on more appointments. All right. It needs to be substantiated with like, what am I going to do? What skills do I need to have? So this is the beginning and laying that framework and foundation of being able to answer that. But now on day 6 is where we take our first pass at writing plans, writing a plan of attack for each one of the goals. And this is a day, for some of you, this might take 2 days. You know what I mean? Like, you got to have just some good bullet points on for each one of the goals. Here's what I'm going to go do, right? It might be, let's say, you want to sell more homes, and one of the plans is you want to generate more leads. Well, the word generate more leads is not the game plan. Like, you need more meat to that plan than just say, I'm going to generate more leads. You want to know, how am I going to generate more leads? Heck, you might need to say, I need acquire more skill or knowledge in generating more leads. Or maybe I need to make an investment in being able to generate more leads.
Or maybe you just need to execute on your MVP consistently every single month to generate more leads.
Well, that's why I think that, remember, guys, we're going to talk about like what education and stuff that you need here shortly. Remember, you've got this huge resource, which is the training library that we have, and all the programs that we offer to be able to help you get that skill, get that knowledge. And by the way, education is going to be part of your plan of attack. Like,
we're not done yet.
Where like part of your plan is, okay, what skills do I need to have? What am I going to do? So you'll want to spend some time. And I think that this is a place where also, by the way, the private Facebook group that we're all a part of as for the Paperless Agent, good place. It's going to be a good place for you to start sharing some ideas, sharing some plans, and vetting each other's plans, okay? We'll have some specific activities around that. So once we've gone through and done a first draft of our plans, we get to day 7 where we're going to talk about what's holding you back. And Gary, this is where we address the potential conflicts, right? We want to identify conflicts that might exist between our goals.
Yeah, and one conflict might be, gosh, for me to actually achieve this, I need to work 30 hours a day, but there's only 24 hours in a day. That might be a conflict. Another conflict might be, well, I don't have a financial budget set aside in order to do all this advertising, so I need to first save that money up. So that could be a potential conflict, but then addressing how you're going to handle that conflict. So if maybe you realize, well, you know what? I know that I need to really execute on these Facebook advertising campaigns that Chris is talking about, but gosh, I just don't have $250 to $300 in the budget to get started. Well, what's the conflict? You don't have the budget. How do you address the conflict? Well, you need to start setting money aside as any business owner would. So that's different ways to work around that.
Yeah, you'd be surprised at the things that truly show up in your conflicts. And this is where I would suggest that you go back, on day 1 where we talked about reflecting on your previous year, is look at what were some conflicts that happened last year that prevented you from reaching your goals. I think that's important to address. Perhaps it was you didn't realize some of the obligations you've already committed yourself to. Perhaps it needs you, instead of working 40 hours a week, that, for a season, you're going to have to work 60 hours a week. Well, maybe you didn't have that time available because you had already committed that 20 hours to other things, right? So it's important to address it and to acknowledge it, because oftentimes what happens is when the conflict happens, it's not like in the movies where all of a sudden there's this huge breakdown. It happens, and we just spend less time working on on the plans and the actions that will produce the results that will help us achieve our goals. So it's not nearly as dramatic as it would seem, like conflict. No, it just means that all of a sudden, instead of dedicating the necessary amount of time that this needed, we're not. And so we have to acknowledge them, because we got to do one of two things. We either need to revise our goals, or we need to come up with a way to mitigate that plan, to mitigate that problem, right? So let's say, for example, here's one from my personal experience, right? Recently, my wife went back to work. She's a teacher, and but she hadn't taught in a long time, so she was, after 10 years, she's back in the workforce, and all of a sudden, it's my job, right? Because she's teaching, so it's more like I'm the one who has to get the groceries now. Well, I found that I could not get the groceries. It didn't work, right? Like, to spend 2 or 3 hours a week procuring the groceries with the 4 kids, not going to happen, right? Not going to happen. And, be able to work and do all that stuff. So instead, I found a way to mitigate this problem, Gary. You know what I do now? I do HEB curbside delivery.
That's about one of the best things ever.
I know. So here's the thing. It costs about $10, $15 more per order, but it saves me 3 hours a week. I mean, literally, I can just go on.
At that point, I'd say, what's your time worth?
Exactly.
Is it worth more than $15 for 3 hours? Well, gosh, I hope so.
Little time-saving hacks like that maybe we can get some time back. For me, that was a big one. There might be apps. When you talk about identifying conflicts, maybe there's apps, maybe there's tools, maybe there's a virtual assistant, right? So you really want to look at where will the conflicts happen, and you might not be able to address them all right now, because as they happen, you just want to acknowledge it. This is something that might thwart my ability to work on the goals. Day 8 is about learning.
Yeah. So once you know what your gaps are, and once you know what things might be holding you back, now we dive into what is it that you need to commit to learning for 2020. And it's all about where are you going to get this education? What kind of education you need and knowledge, and where are you going to get it? We actually have several recommendations in there, but you need to identify what is the gap of your knowledge right now in order to achieve what you want to achieve next year. Because here's the thing is I would say that last year you probably could have achieved what you want to achieve in 2020 if you bridged that knowledge gap. So if you had more knowledge about how to do that, you probably could have done that. And so now we need to identify what do you need to do?
Yeah, a very important one. The acquisition of knowledge. And even just, acquiring skills, now I'll throw in there skills. So skills would be being able to do something that you couldn't do yesterday or before. And you might find that, hey, I need to, I want to be able to send out the MVP more consistently. I want to use a email tool to send this out, right? Maybe you want to look at being able to shoot 1-minute videos, which is part of the MVP now, is to shoot a 1-minute video and promote that. Well, do you know how to do video, right? Can you produce a good quality video? And how would you judge the criteria of it? Do you know how to create the ad to do so, right? So with a good step for you to take is take a quick inventory. And all right, here's what I want to accomplish, and here's an area you might have to do some further exploration. Don't just write the first thing that comes to mind. You want to do some exploration, like, okay, what do I really need to learn here so that I can get from where I'm at, to the next step, right? Maybe I need to learn about some of the practices that we share for how to generate business. Maybe I need to learn more about social media. Maybe I need to learn about some of the paid advertising methods, right? Maybe you want to improve on some of your operations, like how you go on buyer tours or what you do on a listing appointment, right? All of those things, by the way, that we have training on in the Paperless Agent. So definitely check out that training library. But list it out here first and set a plan of when you're going to work on that education. And then
Day number 9
is all about technology and tools. And this is about increasing efficiency, or creating efficiencies and increasing effectiveness. So, Gary, you're the one who really kind of turned me on to the idea of being able to use tools, being able to use technology to save time, right?
Yeah.
We're all
So you know what? If it's cool with you, Chris, I'm gonna take 2 minutes. I'm gonna ask everybody to do this real quick. I want everybody to take out your phone
Okay.
and open up to the calculator.
Okay.
Okay. I'm sure everybody here has an idea as to what, like, the number of transactions you want to close in 2020.
Okay.
So I want you to do this. So let's just say that you want to close 36 transactions next year. Whatever that is, put that number in there.
Okay.
Okay, Chris, I don't need make up a number for you.
You put 36, I'm gonna put 40.
All right. I like it. Then here's what I want you to do is I want you to multiply that times 5. Multiply the number of transactions you want to close in 2020 by 5.
Okay.
Mine comes out to 180.
Mine's 200. I'm more than you.
Yes, it is. So here it is. If you use tools and technology to increase your efficiency and effectiveness, primarily going mobile and using other tools to communicate with your clients, on average, we did a study, you can save 5 hours per transaction, which if you close 36 transactions, that's 180 hours a year. Now, that may not mean too much to you because you're like, 180 hours, what does that mean? Well, let's divide that by a 40-hour, or let's divide that by an 8-hour workday. Okay.
Okay.
That's 22 days.
Wow. That's like a whole month of, that's like a month off almost, right?
That's a month off. If you divide that by 5, which 5 working days, I know in real estate it's typically 6 or 7, so we'll divide it by 6. That's 3.75 weeks this next year that I could save if I were using tools and technology that I'm not already using to increase my efficiency and effectiveness. And so my question to you is not just which ones of these do you need to implement into your business, but also what are you going to do with that time that you save? I mean, it could be, think about it, this huge. Are you going to spend it with your family and loved ones? Are you going to spend it more on your business and actually amplify your transactions? Are you going to go on vacations? Are you going to travel? You know, what is it? Yeah, Peggy just says, wow, that's a nice vacay. Yeah, absolutely. But that's how powerful these tools and technologies that you should be using are.
Yeah. No, without a doubt. And being intentional about them too. Get advice. Don't go after shiny object. Don't syndrome.
Yeah, no shiny, and we talk all about the shiny object syndrome. Just avoid shiny objects.
Okay, so moving along to day 10 is, will you make a public commitment? And this is where studies have shown that if you will say out loud to other people and state what your goals are and what you're going to do, there's that you actually are creating for yourself some accountability, because we want to be consistent with our words, the things that we make promises to. So on this day, you're going to go and you're actually going to say it into the private Facebook group and make a public declaration to be able to help you increase your accountability. But then this is something that's pretty neat, Gary. You've actually even are suggesting that we find an accountability partner through the private Facebook group, right?
Yeah. If you find an accountability partner here within a community that you're already a member of, and they're using the MVP and they're using these different tools and technologies, find that member. And by the way, we show you how to do that. But you can find that member here in the Paperless Agent Marketing Club, and you can work together to hold each other accountable. It is so beneficial.
Yes. I'm going to answer that question. Is there any benefit in addressing technology issues in the 21-day plan before day number 9?
I would say I would follow the process, but after you
yeah.
answer some future questions, you're going to go back and modify this
You're
anyway.
going to be going back and forth in this. I mean, I suggest that you follow it in sequence, because the technology, I mean, heck, the education, the tools, the technology, these are all things. Here's where it would be of benefit, is if that was one of your breakdowns. Like if you look and you were reflecting on the last year and you said, you know, when I had a big technology breakdown last year, that's a lesson learned, right? And that might be part of the gaps that need to be addressed. So yeah, that's where it might show up for you. But follow it if it fits into like the sequence that we've created for you. But feel free to to move around. I'm not going to say that it has to be followed in a certain way. It's just how we suggest that you follow it. If we were going to work with you one-on-one, this is the steps that we would take. So day 11, selecting the right accountability partner. Day 12 is about getting started right now, like actually taking immediate action on the things that you've stated that you want to be able to do and start creating that momentum. And Jordan, I just noticed there's a typo in there. I have, because this, Jordan, I thought you fixed this thing. All right, there's a lot of typos.
You were dripping out content until just an hour ago. So I think I needed to.
Jordan's trying to blame me for not editing it.
Day number 13, setting and managing your moods. This is a critical thing.
Oh, wait, pause for a second here.
No, yeah.
There's a big distinction between day 12 and the steps leading up to day 12 versus day 13 through the end of the program. And so what happens on the first 12 days, you're working on setting goals, designing plans, and getting to work on your actual goals. So that's like the business planning portion of this program. But a lot of times what happens, it's not the plans that let us down, it's ourselves, right? Like a lot of times it is we who get in the way of our own success. And the way we want to work around that is to start working on some professional development practices. And so there's two parts, right? So part 1 is all about business planning, which is days 1 through 12. Part 2 is all about professional development, and those are days 13 through 21. And so the first one is here on setting and managing moods. Gary.
Absolutely. I've always said moods. I mean, everything starts with your mood. We did a whole session a few weeks ago on the 5-phase buyer tour. And one of those phases is setting the mood for your client. But unless we set the moods for ourselves every single day, we're not going to be able to set that mood for our clients and make sure that everything is positive. So everything starts with mood. This is incredibly important. I don't want you to pass up on this step.
Yeah, this is a big one. There's some good comments in here. Tamara saying that one of her main reasons for problems is self-sabotage. Mike was like, hey, there's a lot of typos in there. Maybe too much rum and eggnog. There was no rum in my eggnog, Mike. Okay, I found this new eggnog that is actually made from almond milk, and I really was digging it this last weekend. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
That might affect the 6-pack abs as well. All right, day number 14, creating the right environment for success. This is a huge, really, inspection into your current workspace, your current environment. And we really want you to take this seriously, because creating the right environment for your success is critical to be able to maintain your focus. Because squirrel. Oh, sorry. I just saw a squirrel. And that's what we do in real estate. We get so stuck in this whole mentality like that. And then also, if you work from home, like I work from home most days, what's the draw to go do the dishes or put another load of laundry? And, we've got to really create the right environment for success.
Yeah, I think this is something that you can continuously refine and improve.
Yep.
I know for me, over the holiday, one of my goals is going to be to straighten out my home office, because I do spend a lot of time working there and I want to improve that. But, there are two different types of people out there. There is a type of person who gets energized around people and needs to be around people to be their most productive. Yep, and then there's people who need to retreat and not be around people to be their most productive. I happen to be can't be around people to be my most productive. Knowing who you are, you're going to create the environment that's right for you. That might mean you got to go into the office. That might mean you go to the library and do some work. One of my mentors used to suggest I spend a day a month at the library. I was like, well, what's at the library that I can't get in my office with the internet connected? He's like, just try it. And It was amazing. Yeah. Amazing how productive I became in the silence, but still surroundings of that library. So definitely an important one that you can constantly revisit. If you notice that you get distracted easily, that means you need to work on your environment, which, by the way, could be putting things in place like to limit social media distractions, could be things like to limit the, maybe here's a small one. instead of having email open all the time, is set times when you're going to go look at the email so you don't get distracted on what you were working on to go respond to an email real quick, right? So those are even small environmental factors that we can work on. And I know the screen's going to be a little bit blurry, guys, just because of the resolution is.
Yeah, this is YouTube Live. There's nothing we can do about it. This is a YouTube issue, but we're just reviewing the information
on the screen. I don't have it blown up for you.
Yeah.
I can't really blow it up, but you can always go to the members area and download, and you can follow us real time along here. And day 15 is taking a different. Doing a different activity, and it's one that I have found has had tremendous impact on me, both on my productivity, but then more importantly in trying to understand what should I be working on that truly produces results, right? What do I work on that's really going to move the ball forward when it comes to goals? And it's doing a time study. And this is something that if any of you are familiar with Peter Drucker, management guru, the management science guru. Basically, if it's something about management, leadership, running businesses, Peter Drucker wrote about it, talked about it, has many books on the subject, and almost all books after effect are a regurgitation of Peter Drucker's work. And so one of the things that he talks about is that if we want to be successful in achieving our goals and in producing the outcomes that we want and producing the results that we want, he says that we must learn how to become effective. And what he suggests is the only way that we can truly understand how we're being effective is in the rear view mirror, meaning that we might say to ourselves, today I'm going to work on this and that's going to be most effective. But we delude ourselves by thinking that we actually know what will produce the result. So what happens, and what he says that we have to do, is know thy time. So if we keep a good record of our time, meaning from like the moment you get up till the moment you go to bed in half-hour increments, everything that you did in the workbook, you'll see an example of a time study. You'll go in there, and then after a few days of doing your time study, you're going to find that some of the things that you worked on produced results, or they were directly were related to producing results, and there was a bunch of stuff that wasn't. Another thing you'll probably find is that your output, your productivity in that day that you're keeping track of the stuff that you do will go up threefold. You'll do way more in far less time when you do this, because the stuff what happens is you force yourself to work on things related to the results that you want to produce. And so this is a practice. I know it's hard because this is like a thing that you kind of have to go do it and experience the benefit of it. I suggest I actually end up doing this usually a few times a year just to get a sense of like.
I want to ask everybody here a question, because I know this always happens for me, and I hear this all the time. Is like a few days before you go on vacation, you get really busy and you get really productive, right? And here's why: because you only take care of the things that really matter, and it's because you have a compressed time to do it all in. So if you behaved every day like tomorrow I'm going on vacation, think about how much you would get done. I mean, because whenever I go on vacation, I'm like, oh my gosh, where did all these clients come from? It's like they're bombarding me right now. And that's not the case. They were always there. It's just I wasn't under the pressure to do that.
If we could only have every day like the days right before we go on vacation, productivity wise, imagine you wouldn't have to work as many days and you would have more vacations. Heck, you might need to start scheduling more vacations on purpose just to be more productive. Well, a way to do that is to start utilizing that time study. I do this a few times a year, and I always find that there's little tweaks that I can do to increase not the work that I do, the outcomes that I produce. So the same amount of time is being worked. It's just I'm shifting it a little bit differently, maybe focusing on one thing instead of another, and that always changes the outcome. So definitely something that I suggest that you guys do. And it's a practice that you don't need anything. You don't need it. There are apps out there like Toggle and stuff to keep track of your time. I would just use a piece of paper. I actually use a journal, and I just kind of write in my journal along the way. Day 16, Gary, tell us about this one.
So eliminating noise kind of ties into really creating the right environment for success, but it takes a deeper dive into eliminating distractions. And when I say distractions and noise, it can be audible noise, it could be visual noise, it could be, anything that distracts you from your task at hand is it's just a great practice. And so I recommend just sitting in the workspace that you're in, where you work most of the time, and do this. Close your eyes and meditate calm your mind for 5 minutes. And then after 5 minutes, just see, how did you do? Were there so many distractions? Were there noises? Were there phone calls? Were there pings from your text message? Like, where is this noise coming from that is distracting you from meditation? Because if it's distracting you from meditation, it's distracting you from the work that you're doing. So dive into it, understand it, and then we also give you some ideas of how to clarify things and to reduce that noise. I mean, you know, Chris, I love working outside. I just get so much done. I don't know why that is. I just get so much productivity done when I'm outside and in nature. And so what I've done is I've set up an office space outside on my back patio, but it can get loud out there, right? So what did I do? I got some amazing noise canceling headphones to really help me focus. And so, it's just certain things like that. You can control your environment only to a certain point. And then after that, you need to control the distractions.
Yeah, I think a lot of that is also the inner distraction that happens. I saw that movie the other weekend, Won't You Be My Neighbor? And it's kind of like a Mr. Rogers movie, but not just about Mr. Rogers. And there's this scene in here, and I know he has been known to do this. I actually saw him a YouTube video of Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers of the show Mr. Rogers, doing a college graduation speech thing where he said, and one of the things he has a practice that he would do, and he would like have people do it. He had a whole group of graduating students do it. And they actually showed this in the movie in a restaurant. And he suggests that people just take 1 minute to think about the people who loved you into being, and then silence, right? So like he says that and then says nothing else. And then, by saying nothing else and being silent, you start to think about those things. And one of the things that happens is all of the distractions of the day, because you're thinking about something that's really important, like those who've cared about you, those that loved you, and loved you into being, silences some of that, the anxiety and distraction and turmoil that we have tend to go going on. So I think that it is distractions happen outside, but they also can happen inside as well. Little sign here that you can use.
Yeah, so I created this so everybody can use this. This is the sign I use. If it offends you because you aren't disturbed, then you can delete that. But what I did is I said, please do not disturb. I'm already disturbed enough. And so what you do is you print this out on thick paper. It's a placard. You fold it in half. You just set it on your desk, and people will leave you alone.
Yes.
Anyway.
Okay, day 17 is the practice of daily planning. And daily planning is actually not just waking up that day and deciding what you're going to do. Daily planning is the practice of throughout the week, multiple times, looking out at the week ahead, looking out at the days ahead, and making the revisions necessary so that you have time blocked to work on the things that are going to produce the goals, right? You need time to work on the plans. You need time to get that knowledge. You need time to work on the plans that you've built for achieving your goals. And you've got to make sure the time is allotted there every single week, right? Whatever the number of amount that you need, you're going to have to just determine what that is. But my own practice is usually on the end of the week, or like on a Saturday or Sunday, I'll look forward onto my week. I'll just I have everything in a Google Calendar. And I'll look at everything that I have scheduled in the week. And then what I'll do is I'll start making sure, all right, I have to work on this. So I need to make sure that this is being worked on. And I have to work on this. And I got to pick up the kids on this day. And my daughter's got this band practice thing this day. So I also plug in all life, right? Because life is going to happen. I can't be thinking I'm going to be working on, let's say, an activity that's going to help me achieve my goals, and all of a sudden I got to run off to do a baseball practice, right? Like that's a conflict that's going to happen, right? And we got to identify those conflicts and be able to reconcile them. So that practice of regular planning and assessing. So I do that on a weekly basis, and then every day throughout the day, once or twice a day, I'm checking in with the calendar. I actually check it probably a lot more than just twice a day, because I use it to figure out what I'm supposed to work on next. I use my calendar to be able to determine what did I plan on working on that I knew I was supposed to work on, and then I use that as, okay, now I'm going to spend the next hour, 2 hours, whatever it is, to be working on that thing that I said I needed to be working on.
Yeah.
And so there's some questions in here and some tasks in here to help you do that. Day 18 talks about what habits you want to develop.
Chris, pretty much the 21-day goal setting challenge or goal acceleration program here that we have is about developing a lot of different habits, right? I mean, that's the whole point of this is we are developing new habits for you so that you can prepare yourself for the success that you want in 2020.
Yep. Well, and I think it's important to look. So you might have the habit, for example, of, I don't know, maybe you want to get up earlier. Maybe you want to change how you start the day. Maybe you want to, incorporate exercise. Maybe you want to incorporate taking a break. I don't know. Think of a good habit. This is where you can just start adding to that list.
Yep.
Okay, so day 19 is how are you going to maintain your motivation? Now, we actually talked about this earlier about learning stuff, but researchers have found that if you learn something and you learn how to do something new that you couldn't do yesterday, it has the psychological impact of increasing our motivation. Right. And so a practice that you can do is to schedule to learn things that would be interesting to you. Now, the difference between learning this versus learning some of the other stuff that we had talked about earlier in the program was that those were things you had to do, right? Like, I have to learn how to do this to achieve my plan. The difference with what we're going to learn in day 19 is things that you want to learn. Right. Let me give you an example. So let's say you've always had an interest in photography. You could take a photography class. Now, I'm not saying that you should take pictures of your own listings. What I am saying is you might learn something from the process of learning about how to take better pictures that might improve the marketing or social media that you do. Right. Maybe you've always wanted to take a video class, right, so that you can produce better videos. Maybe you've always wanted to take a creative writing class, and all of a sudden the marketing that you send out would be higher quality. So, it's great when there's a little bit of a tangent that might benefit, but there's oftentimes things that we want to learn that we think would be fun to learn. It's important to engage that part of ourselves because that will produce oftentimes not just motivation, but new insights. I'm reminded of a talk that Steve Jobs gave a long time ago at another graduation ceremony. And he talked about sort of like looking backward to connect the dots. And he realized that, I'll just use one example from that talk. He talked about how, he had taken this class, seemed like a random class at the time for calligraphy. He got really interested in calligraphy, right? Creating these beautiful letters. Fast forward, one of the things that distinguished Apple in the early days was beautiful fonts. And he said that was directly inspired by his learning about calligraphy. And so that was a distinction that became a superior distinction with the Apple products, was the use of nice looking fonts and not that MS-DOS looking stuff that Microsoft was known for. So, but that was like a thing, that was a thing that he learned that inspired future action. So I think what you can do here is just say, I've always wanted to learn this, and maybe there'll be a benefit here, and use that to further motivate yourself, right? For me, it's oftentimes little tool. I like to learn tools, right? I'll learn a new app. I was teaching myself just using, online learning. I was learning about how to use a program called Adobe After Effects. And just to figure it, it's not like I wasn't going to be the video guy for us because we have a person who does that. I was just curious. And in doing so, I kind of connected all these new dots on how to do better video for social media by just learning how to use a program. So anyway, that's day 19. Day 20 is about tracking progress and designing the measurements that we want to follow. We want to design the scoreboard that we want to follow, right? So that we can keep track of how we're doing in our year. But then day 21 is where it really comes together in terms of multiplying your income and using the income multiplier tool that Gary produced. And he has actually had some training on how to use it, Gary. I'm actually going to switch gears here for a second. I'm going to pull up the income multiplier tool because I have that as well. Let me stop this presentation, pull up this presentation. Yes, there we go. So you'll find this in the course resources section, by the way. This is a spreadsheet that you can download and use for day 21 of the program.
Yeah, and when you get to day 21, I want you to already have it downloaded and follow the instructions in the video very, very closely. I'm not going to go through the entire spreadsheet here because I created like a 20-minute video taking you through every single step, showing you exactly how to use it. I do want to talk about the power of having an income multiplier tool like this. What it does is it helps you track your sales pipeline. So it helps you track what's coming down the pipe for you and project out when you're looking at selling or closing these deals and how much money you're going to earn from that. And it really helps you set into action by really understanding what's coming down the pipe and what you've already closed, of what additional actions and activities you need to take in order to achieve those goals that you set for yourself. So this is really diving into tracking your numbers down and understanding what is the likeliness of these transactions to close in each month, and what does that actually mean to me financially every single month. So it's a really powerful tool. Like I said, I don't want to go too much into it because we have a really long video that is going to help you when you download the spreadsheet. It'll help you really understand how to use it.
So I think the key thing here is what you measure tends to improve, right? So if you want to, for example, let's say you wanted to lose weight, and one of the tools that I use whenever I want to lose weight is a tool called MyFitnessPal. And when I track what I eat, like when I actually just keep track, just the activity of tracking what I eat makes me eat better. And I see the results almost immediately on the scale, right? Like all of a sudden, instead of going for that cookie or instead of going for that little tub of ice cream, it's like I'm keeping track and I'm like, no, I don't have the calories in the day for doing that. Or if I am, I'm just going to eat half of that, right? And so there's an immediate result. And so same thing, you're working out. If you want to get some more gains while you're lifting those weights, what you're going to do is you're going to keep track of the reps and the weights that you're doing. No difference when you're trying to increase your income. If you keep track of this, all of a sudden your attention gets applied and focused on those things that are going to produce the results around producing more income for you. So keeping track of this, very, very important. And it's probably one of the harder things for folks to do, not because it's technically hard, but because we don't like to look at it, because it might make us feel bad. But it's that bad feeling that
this is the whole reason, Chris, why people don't reconcile your bank accounts every single month. Why? Because it's painful to see how much we actually spent and how little we actually made. So this is a really, really powerful thing that you need to download and utilize, and just follow the instructions and review it every single week.
Yes. Okay. And with that completes the 21 days. Whether you do them like sequentially or you do a bunch at once, here's what we're going to do to help you have accountability and support. So accountability and support, the program, like we said, officially starts on January 6th. So starting on January 6th, Gary and I will be hosting office hours for 3 weeks on Mondays at noon. And so that's where we're going to help.
Noon Central.
That's where we're going to help hold you accountable. It's where we're going to answer your questions and support any of the questions that you might have. And also through the private Facebook group, through getting that accountability partner. So I'm looking forward. I don't know about you guys. I'm looking forward to a great 2020. I know that in order to have a great 2020, I got to know what I'm shooting for. I got to know what goals I'm going after, and I need to have some good plans, and I need to have the right support. Part of getting that support is just being able to connect with you guys and be able to share, here's what we're going to do, or here's what I'm thinking of going to do. What do you guys think? And I want you to be able to experience that same benefit. So, Gary, I think we should probably see if we've got any questions that we need to wrap up.
We've got a couple of questions, Chris. The first one is about the office hours you were just talking. Brookwater says, office hours, is this a webinar? Yes, that will be a live webinar.
And it's just basically we won't have any prepared information. It's just for you to ask questions, right? So you're just going to go in. You got questions about the program. You got questions that you need advice on. You'll go in there and ask Gary and myself, ask the questions, and we'll try to coach you through going through this 21-day program through those office hours. Think of it
Andrew, sorry, Chris.
I was gonna say, back in college, when the professor would have office hours where you could go to their office and ask questions. Think of it as like that, but in an online version.
Yeah. Well, and Andrew has a question that I'll redirect to the office hours. And Andrew says, do you guys review or look at our workbooks for suggested improvements or critique? Andrew, that's exactly when you would want to bring up those questions and say, hey, I was working on this and this came to light. Do you have any recommendations? Great place to do that. Yeah. And with that, Chris, I think Jordan has actually answered all the other questions that have come up.
Gary, one of our paperless goal that we have for all of our customers and clients is we're looking to upgrade our webinar software.
Oh yeah.
We're actually going to be working on that over the holiday season here. We're going to be, we actually have got some upgraded software. It's actually just like this one, but the newer version that they've been creating and testing. So hopefully that's going to produce a better streaming experience. So less blurry. And there will actually be some cool features in there. Like we can pull people from the audience and put them onto like a hot seat, so to speak, where what we might be able to do is test that for the office hours. If,
that'd be awesome.
If anybody's so inclined to be able to show up and turn their camera on and ask some questions. So should be a lot of fun.
Peggy says, can we get any of this material before January 6th? Yes, you have access to all of it right now.
Yeah, just go into the members area of the website and look for the card that says 21-day goal acceleration program or 21-day gap. And you will see the course site that I shared with you earlier, where you'll be able to download the workbook. You're going to be able to download all the lessons and the videos and all that stuff will be in there.
And Dion Barnes says, is there a fee or do we need to pre-register? There is no fee. This is a gift
for all of our members.
I are giving to you because you're already a member. Now, if you're not a member,
if you somehow got on this and you're not a member, then become a member. There is a special offer for you to become a member over the holidays. Check it out. I think it's something like $1 a day.
But yeah, this is for members only right now, and there is no charge. And we'll be able to communicate with you how to register for those webinars, the office hours.
Like Gary, you're a Santa.
What?
Jerry says, thank you, Santas.
Oh, thank you, Santas. And Bendel says, what are the office hours again? They will be Mondays at noon Central. So Mondays at noon Central.
About when that will be. We'll send out some messages and stuff like that for you to register for them.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Chris, that's what we got there. So happy holidays to everybody. I cannot wait for you to get in there. I want you to get in there. In fact, maybe as soon as we sign off, go log in to your member portal. If you do not see that card there, don't worry. Log out, close your browser, and log back in, and it'll populate.
Log out and log back in. And do us this favor. Go to that private Facebook group and let everybody know. I'm starting on the 21-day goal acceleration program. What are you doing in 2020?
What are you doing?
Let's get as many of our paperless friends and family out there to join us on this chat in this program so that we can have better 2020s
for everybody.
Yeah. So thank you guys for hanging out with us. Thank you, Gary. Always love to share the good stuff with you. And we will see you. Well, happy holidays, everybody, because I think this is our last member training for the year. So we will see you. I guess
we'll see you next year.
We'll see you next year. Well, actually, we'll see you hopefully on January 6th. By the way, our next member training will not be the first Wednesday of January, just because that's January 1st. And we know that some of you might not be feeling so good after the previous evening's, antics. So we're actually going to do it on the 2nd January of the year, which is, let me pull up my calendar here. It looks like it's January 8th. Yeah, so January 8th will be the next member training. Awesome. And we look forward to seeing you then. We'll see you in the private Facebook group. Take care, guys.
Peace.
Bye, Gary.
Bye.